Welcome to EmpowerU. I'm Amy Stephens. You may have heard Pastor Steve's podcast where we had a conversation about public policy engagement or civic engagement. You know, COVID changed a lot of things in our community, and this is where the road really exploded in membership and where people began to get engaged. And so Pastor Steve came to me and said, hey, would you consider volunteering to help lead this effort? We have all kinds of views in our church, diverse views. And really, how do we make sense of that? How do we move forward? People are exhausted, a lot of people angry, some just trying to raise their kids. How do we stay engaged? And I'm convinced it's through big, important little things that you and I can do every day. And that's what you're going to hear on these podcasts. You're going to hear from people in the community, school board members. You're going to hear from people that work in the pro-life space. You're going to hear from legislators, people that are going to talk to us about what their lives are really like, what their jobs are really like, and actually how we can make a difference and or support them. And so that is the hope for Pastor Steve. That's the hope that I have, and we look forward to engaging with you. Well, welcome. I'm really excited. We're in an election year, but more importantly, we have just some great stories that are coming our way for EmpowerU. And one of the first ones, and I think many of you can relate to this, is on free speech. It is Seth Dillon at Babylon Bee, which it makes me howl. And if you don't see Babylon Bee every day for a laugh, then sorry for you, but they're fantastic. Anyway, Seth Dillon really identified that free speech, censorship, it's everywhere we're looking. And today I am so honored to have Andrew Nussbaum joining me. And Andrew is one of the lead attorneys at the law firm of 1st and 14th. If you're wondering what that's about, of course, it's a little obvious, but I'm going to have Andrew. Andrew, I'm so happy you're here. I have so wanted to interview you for a while.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Amy. I'm thrilled to be on the podcast, and I agree with you totally that First Amendment issues are more pressing than they've ever been.
Andrew, you and I met, we met through a Federalist Society, but tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I'm a Colorado Springs native, born and raised here, one of the rare fourth-generation Coloradans.
Yes.
But left for a long time. I lived for a while in Minnesota, and then went to law school in Louisiana and clerked on a federal court in Birmingham, Alabama, actually. I practiced for a couple years at a huge international law firm, 2,200 lawyers with an office in Denver. And then I went back to work for another federal judge here in Denver, Dan Domenico, right before COVID shut down the courts. So I started in January 2020 with him, and then March we were totally remote, doing trials remote. It was a wild time, and then left that, and now I'm a partner at our law firm here in Colorado Springs, 1st and 14th, where I represent religious institutions, public figures, all different kinds of folks in litigation and things like that.
Yes, and religious freedom and expression and those things that you and I value so very much. We met really on an issue last year. It started last year, and it has only escalated, and that was through the legislature. Mm-hmm. And we were getting reports last year from members of the Republican minority that they were being told, in essence, what to say on the House floor. They were gaveling them. And as a former House Majority Leader, there are rules to the House, but at least when I was there, if you are arguing on a bill, you're debating a bill, there should be give and take. In other words, we used to not have rules around what you apparently could or couldn't say. We'd never broach there because you represent one area, I represent another, and we should be able to speak our piece and represent the people that we represent with their viewpoints in mind. And we began to get word about that.
Yeah, so, there's a classic division between decorum on the House floor, which Speaker or the Majority Leader or whoever's holding the gavel, they have to enforce decorum. That's people being polite to each other, not cursing, things like that. But here we're talking about straight up viewpoint discrimination. Words you're not allowed to say on the House floor that frame the issues. Is the bill pro-life or anti-abortion. And if you use one of those two words, that says a whole lot about how you view the legislation. If you can't say pro-life and you're a pro-life legislator, that has a real effect on your advocacy for your constituents.
Sure does. And particularly the group that we have representing El Paso County right now, which, is largely, to this point, conservative. We've probably lost a seat or two that we shouldn't have. But again, that's what's going on. We were getting word that one of our representatives, Don Wilson, got gavelled down for saying Planned Parenthood. Yeah. I mean, and folks, when I say gavel, I really do mean, gavel in hand. And someone can go, pardon this, but, at the desk, they can and say, hey, you're out of order. You're out of order. You're out of order. Mm-hmm. Representative for gaveling. Now, it's one thing if you broke the rules, like you said, but it's a whole other thing to have someone try to interrupt you and stop your speech.
Well, and especially when you're talking about the most pressing issues of the day. So, for example, can you use the phrase illegal alien? That's what the House majority wants to say. You can't use that phrase. You can't use those words. Those words are used in federal law.
Right.
And so, it's not to say one way or the other who's right. It's to say that everybody should be allowed to speak according to their viewpoint, according to the constituents who elected them.
Yes. And given, apparently, that we've had some buses arrive here in Colorado Springs, it's appropriate to be able to say, our own county commission viewed this as illegal, right? It is illegal. And yet it came to a culmination just over the weekend that they were told, no, you can't say this. And not just that, but it triggers us.
Right.
It triggers us.
Right.
It gets us upset.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, I don't want to elect somebody who gets upset over public debate. I mean, that's what this country's about. It's about robust, hard-knock debate, and we want those kinds of forums to be free-ranging, no ideas left unsaid, all that kind of stuff. And so if you're triggered by hard conversations, you probably shouldn't be an elected representative in the United States.
Well, apparently half of the majority in Denver gets triggered by something. And in fact, a good example is a few weeks ago, they had, there was a bill before the House Judiciary Committee where Gays Against Groomers and Rocky Mountain Women's Center came to testify against the bill. Mm-hmm. And apparently they didn't use the right words and refused to use the words that they were told that they should be saying, and saying it violates our deeply held religious beliefs. They were hauled off, they were escorted out, and then their testimony was erased.
Yeah. Removed from the legislative record. I didn't know that part.
Yes.
That's wild.
Yes.
That's wild.
And so is it any wonder then the Institute for Free Speech said,
yep, we're going to sue. Well, and it's about a larger question. I mean, some of these things I want to litigate. I'm a lawyer. I see every issue should be a case in federal court.
Yes.
But on the flip side of it is a question of the culture of First Amendment values in our institutions in Colorado Springs and Colorado and nationally.
Yes.
And we have really seen an erosion of respect for kind of that fundamental question of freedom of conscience.
Yes.
The people who are able to stand up and speak their mind according to their faith or lack of faith, and their beliefs, their considered views, and silenced in the public square.
Yes, and speech that I don't like. I mean, listen, I have huge varying viewpoints on any particular bill on any given day. Yeah. But listen, a colleague is going to speak once again for their area.
Right.
I was always told, represent your district or someone else actually will, right? Very quickly.
Well, the odd thing about the moment is people of traditional commitments, of which I include myself, they're really in the position of ACLU liberals of the 1960s. It's really taking the view that everybody gets to speak. And it's an odd reversal of roles that today we're playing the role of saying, I want to protect your right, even if I disagree with you, to speak your mind. That's a core American value, and we want to protect that.
Well, it's not just in terms of our free speech, you and I verbally speaking, but also political speech, the freedom to have signs, which Andrew's like, okay, you're gonna bring this up again. But it was a big deal last year. The town of Monument, which I represented, which I had huge billboards. Yeah. I had yard signs. Yeah. I had them. Monument has the no growth Monument crowd, the no growth whatsoever community organizing crowd in Monument has said, we don't want any signs. We don't care if you're a realtor. We don't care if it's an estate sale. We don't care if it's classic homes. We don't care if you're running for office. It just all goes down. Yeah. Like it's just, no, we're not having it. And the sad thing about part of that is it's a complete blackout of anything. Like you wouldn't know there's an election coming. You wouldn't even know we're having a county commission or even a presidential.
Right. And again, I mean, to my point, I think you want to encourage speech, not say you can't have it. You want to open up public spaces on public rights of way and Monument or wherever it is to people having the debate, people being allowed to know what the debate is, and get out there and speak their mind and have a vote, have a say.
Well, you faced some pretty interesting stories this year. You had one in Pueblo, one in Woodland Park that, people just go, are you kidding? I mean, this is just insane. But when you get towns that create little dictators and they win, let's just say, they're going to take matters into their own hands. Tell me about Pueblo. There was a pastor, I think.
Yeah, so we represented Pastor Paul Elder, Reverend Paul Elder, and his church, the Christian Growth Center, which is a tiny little church in Pueblo, Colorado. They have a real heart for God, doing work for the poor folks in East Pueblo, just wonderful community. And they have what they call an RV evangelist ministry. And Pastor Elder testified to the city council down there that ministry is connected to the people who showed hospitality to the apostles. When Paul was traveling around the Middle East, spreading the word, he said it's direct descendant from that. It has an American twist in this little tiny group of churches. These preachers go from tiny little town to tiny little town, preaching revivals in these small churches, and they travel by RV. Wow. And so these little churches, they offer what they call an RV hospitality ministry, which is just a place to park your RV, connect to the water, electricity, all that kind of stuff. Pastor Elder had been doing it for 30 years in Pueblo, welcoming people, and he'll tell you that when those preachers come to town, it's often the best times for their community. Lots of people's lives changed as a result of those services. And for whatever reason, Pueblo just decided to declare war on Pastor Elder and his RV hospitality ministry. They served a notice of violation that said his RV was non-compliant with the city code. And for each day of violation, get this, Amy, it was $1,000 fine for every day or a year in jail.
A year in jail.
A year in jail for violating this ordinance. So this poor, this little pastor in Pueblo, Colorado, he just decided, I'm going to fight. I'm going to stand up to these bullies. His poor wife thought, my husband is going to jail for every day he's violating this ordinance. And he trusted. We went to court. We took it all the way up to federal court and finally got Pueblo to settle and allow us to continue to do this thing.
And they were hell-bent, Pueblo.
They were hell-bent.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Okay. I mean, and now he's back in his ministry?
Yeah. Well, and the mayor down there, he compared, on the public record, he compared the RV hospitality ministry for this small Christian church to, I think, running a pot shop. It was the same thing as running an unlicensed pot shop. Okay. And you just think, and that goes to my point, the ignorance of First Amendment values, that religious freedom is a good thing, that religious worship is a good thing, that it has a pride of place in our Constitution.
Yes, right.
I mean, that's wild.
Apparently, no. I that's stunning. And Woodland Park thought they would try to hustle in on something. This was...
So we represented Charis Bible College out in Woodland Park against the city was trying to strip its tax exemption over their they're building some dorms for their students out there. We had to get involved to explain to the city that, as a matter of state constitution, you have tax exemption as a religious organization, and you can't target religious practice for disparate treatment. Thankfully, I'll say the city council did the right thing in that case.
Yes.
But it took some public education and explanation of the rights of religious organizations in Colorado. And
Unlike Monument that said, "We dare you, just go to court." That crowd. But what's interesting again about that is that really there is an attitude of, well, we just don't want your free speech littering up our town.
Yeah.
Like, we just don't want, and I would say, even the signs of free diabetes kits or daycare in your local neighborhood.
Yeah.
No.
We live in a democracy, and to live in a democracy, the price of play is robust conversation. So I don't get why people don't want to have the conversation, why they don't want to allow people to speak their mind. That's how we operate.
And there are Supreme Court precedents to back those things up.
Absolutely. Over and over and over again, from the beginning of the Constitution, the Supreme Court has said the freedoms protected by the First Amendment are absolutely essential to the functioning of our country. And so if you let those things go, you have a dark road ahead of you, I think.
Well, I think we're getting used to trying to navigate a dark road, because I know that you are getting more phone calls than you can possibly. I mean, it's almost, you're overwhelmed.
Well, I'll say two things about that. I have phone calls every day from people in all different kinds of situations where they're being taken advantage of, silenced, all those kinds of things. Absolutely. But I think people are waking up to it. I mean, for example, our law firm is very proudly pro-First Amendment, pro-Constitution, and that's infectious. I mean, when you stand up and say, I believe in the fundamental values, the fundamental truths that our Constitution's based on, people want to hear that. They want to be called to something greater than themselves. But there's a lot of work to be done, and hopefully we're bringing more people on board to help us do that work.
Well, we want that for Colorado. I think the behavior that's been going on at the legislature gives everybody pause as it comes out, as it's metered out. People go, wait, what?
Well, I don't think people know.
I don't either.
I don't think people know what's going on from there. I think most people think it's Colorado. It's kind of middle of the road. We're historically a purple state. I don't think they have any idea what's going on up there.
No, they don't. And I think the majority feels its power to be able to go, and we dare you too.
Yeah.
We dare you too.
Yeah.
The problem, I think, with the courts is some say, well, yeah, if it's a toughie and you lose, do you want to lose in Colorado or do you want to win in a different state, another jurisdiction?
When I was a 3L in law school, third-year law student, Justice Scalia, before he passed away, came to speak to the law review. And what he said about judges is the most important quality a judge can have is moral courage. That they have to be willing to stand up and do the right thing in the hardest moments. And I think that's true for all public servants, but I think it's true for citizens of a democracy too. You have to be willing to stand up and fight when it's prudent to fight, just like Pastor Elder. He said, he was a police chaplain down in Pueblo. He's a taxpayer, a law-abiding citizen, and he was a happy warrior. He said, I love these people. I don't want to be in a fight with them, but if you're going to trample on my First Amendment rights, I'll see you in court.
See ya.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's like Speaker Mike Johnson in front of Columbia yesterday, which I thought took great moral courage and a whole group.
Probably some physical courage, too.
Physical courage. I mean, listen, you could hear.
Yeah.
To me, that was a brilliant, brave move, and calling them into account and saying, we're not going to have students in America scared to go to school because they're Jewish.
Amen.
I mean,
amen.
It's just, and I thought everybody around him, it took great moral courage. And these fights are not easy. They take thought.
Amen.
I think the next area I wanted to bring up was pro-life, because we have seen such disparity in justice on pro-life people who choose to even peacefully demonstrate. We had cities torn down by BLM and officers shot and people killed, but people people who choose to have their sign or sidewalk council or have had their homes busted open?
Well, it's worse than that. So let's talk about, I think it's the Wisconsin Right to Life. Did you follow what happened there? Their offices were firebombed.
That's right, they were.
They had spray painted on the side of their building. until abortion's safe, you're not safe. Things like that.
Yes.
That has gotten no media coverage. I mean, and that's true. It's true in Wisconsin, Right to Life, all across the country. I'm Catholic, Amy. I used to attend the cathedral up in Denver. During the BLM protests, after Dobbs was overturned, statues of the Virgin Mary were beheaded. There was horrible graffiti about Satan lives here, spray painted on the church, right on Colfax in downtown Denver. And no one's talking about the possibility. I mean, it's hate crimes. I mean, that's what it is.
Yes.
And we're not allowed to use that phrase, right?
No.
But that's what's going on in the country, and no one knows anything about it. But if you talk to pro-life advocates, policy directors in their local states, they're afraid for their safety.
Yes.
And I think they have reason to be.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But again, when we're talking about, are you going to carry on with what you're doing and the moral courage to do so?
Yep.
So, for example, prior to us flipping on the switch here, you and I were talking about this targeting of pregnancy centers, lawfare.
Yep.
It's the same lawfare that's going after Trump, and it's the same let's make it up and see where it sticks in certain states.
So one of the things I've been seeing is these radically expansive document requests to anybody who's willing to stand up on behalf of pro-children, pro-mother, pro-child policies, things like that in these states. The United States, Gender Justice, the Center for Reproductive Rights, they're sending out to small organizations with tiny little budgets, give me every document you've ever had that discusses your pro-life advocacy.
And why would they have to?
Well, they don't. They have a First Amendment right not.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a blatantly illegal document request, but the point is not whether or not it's legal. It's to burden their free speech rights. It's to say, you better look over your shoulder the next time you want to talk to Amy Stephens about how do we strategize at the legislature. I mean, that's the goal there.
No, that is the goal. You spoke the other day also in terms of medical mobile units, people that are trying to meet women where they're at with maternal child health care, primary health care. I mean, we've had medical mobile units are nothing new.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you've done blood drives and you have vaccination, pediatric care through medical mobile units.
Yeah.
They are, I think, essential in areas like Appalachian Mountains where women need maternal child health, or very disparate areas that don't have a hospital within a decent driving distance. I think they're of necessity. And yet, what do we see, right?
Well, we see pretextual targeting of these, and that's a lawyer term. It's just to say we're going to take every tool we have in our toolkit and make it as hard as we possibly can on these small medical mobile units to do their business. That might be parking tickets. It might be extra taxes. It might be saying you can operate from 3:30 to 4:35 on the third Monday of the month, and any time outside of that, you're in violation of our code.
Right.
They're going to throw up all the roadblocks they can to say you're trying to help moms and children. You can't do it.
Within the pro-life movement, we hear this. We're not political. And I say, you are being dragged kicking and screaming, like it or not, into these lawfare or into these types of situations.
So I think what people mean by that is they're not partisan. They don't necessarily have a strong dog in the fight one way or the other.
Yes.
But I think Christians have to be political. You have a call to faithful citizenship in the public square. What does it mean? How does the gospel apply to our common life together? That's I think a fundamental call of what it means to be Christian. And so you can't hide from it. I mean, everybody's coming for you. And if you're not going to stand up and say, here's what I believe, then somebody else is going to say something very different, and they're going to be your representative, and you're going to be in trouble.
So this little light of mine doesn't get to hide it under a bushel.
Yep.
I think a lot of people would like to. But I think this is true, particularly as we look at targeting. And I was thinking there is a new campaign that has come out called Equal Access to Motherhood, which I think is brilliant.
Great slogan.
It's brilliant. And I think that the more, it forces us to have to be more creative. And also, by the way, to always make sure your house actually is in order.
Yep.
I mean, that is incumbent upon all of us. Yep. We know at times there can be a bad actor or someone didn't do something right.
Right. Yep.
And we have to get our ducks in a row.
Yep.
I think in New York, there was a piece of legislation that just came out that said, well, if you're a pregnancy center and you have a medical director, and he's not there 24/7, let's say, overseas.
Yep.
You need to put something out in writing, and you need to talk about burdens, talk about targeting and burdensome.
Yeah. I totally agree. And you see, that happened in the Colorado legislature, targeting the speech and what crisis pregnancy centers or other organizations can say, imposing very burdensome regulations on what they have to post, all those kinds of things, and saying things that are contrary to their faith. So, for example, the Biden administration is about to come out with a rule under the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act that will require conscientiously opposed organizations, say a church, a ministry, the Springs Rescue Mission, Catholic Charities, to accommodate an employee's abortion, but also not create a hostile work environment, quote unquote, where, if it's an organization that wants to advocate on behalf of pro-life issues, you could potentially be in trouble with one of your employees who opposes those views. It's crazy stuff. And it's again, same thing on Second Amendment, right? Second Amendment, we had 3 bills in Colorado. Surely those are going to have to wind up in the court. Yeah, and I'm sure they will.
At great expense, right? Yep. And that's what they're counting on.
Yep.
And in the meantime, we'll go on our merry way.
Well, that's a whole other conversation. The amount of money, the avalanche of money on the other side, specifically to do this kind of litigation. To name one organization we were talking about just a moment ago, Center for Reproductive Rights. They're litigating across the country. Guess what their revenue was in 2023? $63 million. Guess what North Dakota Right to Life's revenue was in 2023?
Oh, no, I don't even. Not even $1 million.
$51,000.
No.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos' wife just gave to the Gender Justice, I think, $2 million, $4 million,
and she gave to Rocky Mountain Planned Parenthood.
And the amount of money they have to silence speech, to go after people with these lawsuits it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming,
which actually brings me to the turn of what we've decided to do here in Colorado, because Alliance Defending Freedom doesn't live here or whatever, and we have people like the pastor in Pueblo who have immediate needs, or a Charis Bible College who the town of Woodland Park needed a letter. Like, they needed to hear what's going on. So we are launching, I say we, I'm helping to be part of it, but really 1st and 14th the law firm houses it. But it's called First Amendment Now, and it's the real deal. First Amendment Now, meaning now, today. Today's the day we need free speech, today, tomorrow, and for our children and for their future. Let's talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, so First Amendment Now, and I should clarify, we're going to work as kind of outside general counsel for the organization. But First Amendment Now exists to advance the First Amendment rights of Coloradans, and that can be any of the First Amendment rights. Remember, we have the right to free speech, the right to assembly, the right to association, petition, and then perhaps the most important, the right to free exercise of religion.
Yes.
And what we want to do is assist those Coloradans in need in a place where they're being silenced or they're not allowed to witness their faith. Help them with strategic litigation advice, litigation if necessary, but also public education. We want to get out there and train our legislators, our school board members, city councilors, county commissioners about what does it mean to foster a culture of First Amendment values in our public square, which, as we've said throughout all of this, are under severe attack.
Yes, severe attack. And I think none too soon. I think, again, I even watched with the town meeting, people arguing back and forth, over the Gilbert decision, and really badly mangling it.
Oh my gosh.
And just kind of really taking things, I would say, not just out of context, but you think, okay, these are our leaders and they don't even have a handle. They don't even know what's going on. Let alone fostering a culture of free speech.
That's a whole other question. But having the right to free speech implies a duty to exercise that speech well. Now, that's not enforceable, but what that means in practice is you should go out and read the decision and decide for yourself. Don't trust what the media says about a decision from Arizona or Alabama or the United States Supreme Court. They write those opinions so regular people can understand them. I know that for a fact. I've clerked for federal judges. go out and read the opinion for yourself and decide for yourself. That's the whole point here.
Yes. And hopefully in the sense of educating on First Amendment now, that we can, win people along the way that can actually tolerate different viewpoints.
Yes.
I know that's shocking. Even in the Republican Party, maybe they'll tolerate a different viewpoint. I'm not sure. I had a girlfriend who hadn't been here in 20 years, and she went to the state convention, and she was the only one standing against. They wanted to do a voice thing. She said, "No, we've always voted on these things." And everybody turned around. She said she got the stink eye, like no one's business.
Well, it's what's going on in Colombia. I mean, in every society in the history of the world, they've been hostile to the Jewish people, our brothers and sisters in faith, right?
Yes.
And the United States historically has been the best place for Jews to live in the world, and we have to treat every group of people, but especially people like the Jews that have been more historically discriminated against everywhere.
Yes.
That's a test case, I think, for how religious freedom is going to flourish in the United States.
Yes. And to me, all of the uprisings, I'm never a buyer on lately because of, as you just briefly mentioned, all of the avalanche of money.
Yep.
Where it's rent-a-mob.
Yep.
Really it is.
Yeah.
I would guess that half the people that are supposedly doing a lot of this are paid and paid activists, and they show up as a rent-a-mob. But I do think it demands our attention.
Yep.
And I think that it demands our attention, even for parents looking at where you're sending your kid to college.
Yep.
I heard yesterday someone said, "Really, did you go to Columbia to learn how to hate Jews?"
Yeah.
Is that what you paid $50,000 a year for?
Yeah.
I'd argue my son went to Lehigh. This year, I almost keeled over. I wrote my son and said, "If this was your graduation, I'd be out there with my sign," which he's probably thrilled. Thank God Mom is not even remotely near here. But they're having someone from the Institute for Separation of Church and State.
Yeah.
And she's, been invited to wokester the rest of the crowd. And it's just shocking. I mean, I don't say shocking. I keep saying that word. But it really is, I think, a punch in the eye to the people who've sacrificed to pay so much money for this.
Well, it's been going on for a long time, and they've become emboldened, I think, because they have so much power. So it's finally coming to the forefront, and they're saying, actually, this is what we've been doing all along, and now we're saying it out loud as what we're doing.
It's the truth.
I mean, we see it my perspective is the law. Law schools are in some ways the worst on this. I don't know if you followed what happened at Stanford, but the protest of Judge Kyle Duncan of the Fifth Circuit.
Yes.
And I think the primary issue there was that Judge Duncan was an advocate for the traditional view of marriage when he was in private practice. Mm-hmm. How dare he?
Mm-hmm.
and
how dare he's right.
But the bigger issue is not necessarily how you feel about that particular question. The bigger issue is that lawyers disagree for a living. And so you have to be prepared to encounter people who take the opposing view of the issue, and you have to be able to live with them civilly, have a conversation with them civilly, understand their perspective, and be able to articulate it, or else the courts in America will never work. And so the idea that a law school would allow people to shout down and organize a speech like that and not listen respectfully, ask him hard questions, debate him, go do that. That's great. Have the conversation. Now, I bet Judge Duncan would be totally ready for any debate, but but the point is, let's have the debate. Let's have the civil debate.
Right, right. Without it being considered hate speech.
Right.
Which is really what's happening. I'm going to go back to Denver. We disagree, and it's just hateful.
Yes.
You don't agree with me? You're a hater.
Yes.
And you go, no, actually, no. But apparently, and no one, I think, Andrew, the equipping of being able for people to go, no, absolutely not. That's rubbish, actually.
Well, here's kind of where I'd say I'm hopeful. It doesn't take much. It takes people with moral courage, and it takes people who are willing to stand up and say, I believe these things, and I'm able to explain why. I was on a call recently with about 15 lawyers on the other side. It was me versus 15 lawyers. And we won that case. I explained to them. I had the courage to stand up and say, here's the law. Here's how it applies here. You might disagree with that, but you're going to lose on it. And they backed down. And it's standing up to the bully, being willing to look him in the eyes and stare him down. One person can do that. So I would encourage anybody who's listening, just remember that all it takes is one courageous person willing to stare down the mob.
I think that's the lesson for us today. I think for our listener and viewership, this is the lesson, is that it's not just a mob. And sometimes we find strength. I find strength when I'm with you or with other like-minded people. But actually, this is the truth, because God is with us.
Yeah. And
we actually can speak up, and we should speak up, and we actually need to have the moral courage more and more. And it doesn't matter at your child's school.
Yep.
It doesn't matter at your job. And, a lot of people are self-censoring today. Just like, Dad, okay, yes, I get it. You're talking about free speech.
Yeah,
but I have a job, and I need to keep that job.
Yeah.
And I have a child, and I don't need to be fired. So,
Yeah, well, I think that's true insofar as it goes. And you have to pick your shots. You have to be prudent. Prudence is a virtue. But it's when the time comes, and it might come sooner than you think, you have to be willing to stand up. Yes. The other thing I would say is I was with an attorney from ADF, a wonderful gentleman based in Michigan, over the weekend, and he made the comment that he prays for these organizations. He prays for the attorneys there. He prays for his opponents. And that was just a really helpful reminder to me that we should be praying for them and we should care for them. I don't have animus in my heart towards them.
Right.
I seek the good. I think they probably think they're seeking the good as well.
Yes.
And part of what I believe in as a lawyer is we appeal to reason, which is a God-given right, a God-given gift. My hope is that they can hear reason and know truth, and we should remember to pray for them.
Well, that is a great place to end. I want to encourage all of you. Really, it is the pray for our enemies. It is the thing that we have to do. And the other part of it also, and Pastor Steve, once again, I tell you, he was ahead of the game today. We got one of his writings on character about and how we express our character, having moral character.
Yep.
And Andrew, you're always inspirational to me. If people want to know more about the law firm of 1st and 14th, do you have a website?
1st-14th.com. Come check us out.
Yes.
Our slogan is Tradition Wins. So come and see our About Us, all of the core values that we have. It's a wonderful place to work.
Yes, and very shortly, the website for First Amendment Now will be up and running, and anybody that wants to come and join, get information, education, we're excited about that too. Andrew, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
Appreciate it.